Hello and welcome to another workbench video. Today we're going to be working on this that you see in front of you, which is a really cheap AM/FM radio, IC based. And what this is going to be an assembly video. Kind of a little bit loose there on the pan, but whatever. And this all came from Banggood electronics, shipped direct from China, and this whole thing was like $8. But there's no instructions or anything, and this one will be a fairly easy assembly because it's only a couple. There's really no alignment. It's all IC based, and then there's not really any alignment, so no IF transformers or anything like that. Everything's done in the chip. You've got an RF front end and a couple other things, but pretty much it's very simple. But also it's going to give me a chance to try out this, which is a nice little, also picked up from Banggood Electronics, a component identifier tester. Because a lot of these parts I do not trust, the passive parts, and they come from here, so I will check them, and a lot of them also have values written on them so small that I can't read them without a magnifying glass, so actually it's going to be easier to use the tester. And so I'm going to start working on this. Probably going to bring the circuit board holder over here and set it up, put the board in the jaws, and then start assembling. So here it is after having put in all of the semiconductors, the two ICs, a switch, the two transistors, and the cable that goes to the display. And printed circuit boards aren't of the highest quality. I had to turn my iron down. I accidentally lifted one of the pads here on the IC, but it should be okay. So that's it for now. I was having a little bit of a trouble installing the tuning capacitor. The solder is not sticking to the pins, so I've got to clean those up with some alcohol or something, because there's something on them that the flux is not removing. And then start testing all of the passives, the resistors and the little capacitors, and the ceramic capacitors, that is. Probably going to not use these electrolytics. They are unbranded garbage, and I have them in Panasonic and Nichicon, so we'll go from there. A little progress update on the kit radio. I have soldered in all of the semiconductors, all of the capacitors, and then all of the connecting wiring that is necessary to connect the speaker, the front panel switch display unit, and also the power connectors. I've also wired on the ring connector that goes on the antenna, and I'm going to flip the board holder over so that you can then see the other side with the components. So here's the component side of the circuit board with the wiring showing. For the wiring, we have the two leads here for the speaker, your positive, negative and positive for the power, the main connector to the display board, this board, so that will get wired in, and also the buttons attached. And then you have your power switch, and yet to be installed is the tuning capacitor, the volume control, the headphone jack, and any of the resistors. I checked all of the capacitors to see if they, at least worked before I install them. I'm going to do the same thing with the resistors, because I really have no idea about the resistors that are included with this. So I'm going to check them quickly. And then here is your main IC that runs just about everything. It does all the amplification for the most part. It has the AM and FM sections. Although the AM section does not seem to be wired in, so it could do AM, but it does not in this radio. So you have your AM section, which is disconnected, your FM, your FM AFC, your discriminator, your amplifier, your discriminator, and then, so that is what all this chip does. And then this chip is the audio amplifier chip, and that is here. Just a simple, simple push-pull audio amp. It's got a simple audio amp with feedback, and then it goes into the speaker or the headphone jack. Goes into the headphone jack and goes through the speaker. And then you have your LCD screen, which is connected, which then has all of the buttons for operation. But then this is the wire, that multi-conductor wire. Input RF amp, and acting as a voltage regulator in the circuit here. And this uses crystal filters instead of your standard FMIF with inductors. So the crystal filters are set for 10.7 megahertz. And then this is your tuning capacitor, and then the coils, coupling coils, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's about it. Here is the circuit board with all of the components installed that can be installed while the board is in the pan of ice. The parts that still need to be installed are the tuning capacitor, which still needs to be scrubbed so I can see why the solder was not sticking to it. And then you have the volume control, which actually sticks out over here, so that will not fit in the vise, and then the headphone jack. But other than that, everything is all connected, and the leads have been trimmed. And then once I do get everything installed, I will then deflux the board and then connect everything so that we can get into the case. For a first trial, might not do the first trial in the case, might just set it out breadboard style and power it with my power supply. I'm going to flip the board over here. Let's see if we can do this live. It ought to be fun. Okay, so here's the board with everything installed on it. All the wiring, everything, and all the components. And the fun thing is, even after assembling and filling the circuit board completely, there are components left. There was one dead resistor that I did not install, but there are a total of 3 resistors and 4 capacitors that are not installed on this board because there is no place for them to go. And yeah, I think they just get a random pile of parts and put things in a box and go. and it's amazing that you can get everything shipped as cheaply as you can. So I'm going to cut this off here as part 1 of the entire video. Part 2 will be the assembly of the mechanical components, the stuff that can't go in while the board is in the holder, and getting everything ready for its first power up.